Okay, good evening. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday wherever you may be in the world. This is Chew the Fat, where we get into things in a bit more detail on any particular film, episode, TV show, theatre production, comic, whatever it may be. Tonight, of course, we are talking about episode 4 of Masters of the Air. I've got quite a lot to say about this episode. To be clear, from the beginning, I have been giving this show a lot of praise. For the most part, I have got some gripes with it, but for the most part, episodes 1 and 3, I was pretty impressed. But we're going to talk about more, I think, about episode 4 in a second. I've got an excellent panel tonight. People with various extensive knowledge of different subjects and things like that. But I've also got BluCollarLoser as well. How are you, sir? You're muted, mate. I know
that's going to be a glare problem. Yeah.
Excellent. Good choice of clothes. I take it you're representing the Americans this evening.
Yeah, of course. Funny, I'm drinking Scottish whiskey because I knew one of your guests was coming on. So,
yeah, good shout.
Also,
a man who works on the inside of productions, works in the business much like myself, and has quite a lot of inside knowledge about Masters of the Air. It's the Inside Man, aka the Inside Man, aka Retropolis Now.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? You're looking very good.
Pretty good. Oh, thanks very much. I'm feeling good. So it must be the roast dinner I had earlier. Okay. Next, the man who's got a history channel. Funnily enough, it's all about history on that channel. A stickler for accuracy. We'll be getting into rivet counting in just a second with him. It's HistoryBro. Bo, good to see you again.
Hi, yeah, no, good to see you. Thanks for having me back.
Not at all. And the man that I need to thank for introducing you to me is the Critical Drinker. Fortunately, he's here, so I can do that in person.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Great to have you back on the channel, mate. And good to see you. And welcome back to the UK.
It's a pleasure to be here. I was going to say it's a pleasure to be back in the UK. Not so much.
Yeah.
I'll take Florida over this any day of the week.
You looked pretty perky and upbeat when you got into that. Was it an ice cream cafe where there was an actress who was the waitress or something? I saw a bit of a video and you'd literally just stepped off the plane.
What am I seeing here? Like, other people have been talking to me about this as well. Have I totally missed something here?
Yeah, maybe you were in a complete daze and you weren't fully conscious, but you went to some kind of ice cream cafe with Nerdrotic and all those guys, and there was an actress serving everyone, and I think she was doing a British accent, but I only saw a really short clip of it.
Oh, that, yeah. Oh man, that was the Chocolate Emporium on the first night. Yeah, They had actresses in there doing their bit, and man, she was good. I will give her dues because we threw her all kind of curveballs, and she just went with it. So yeah, respect.
I did watch the improv going on. It was pretty entertaining. All right, well, we're going to get into Masters of the Air. We've got 31 people watching. Listen, thanks very much for tuning into the Outcast Creative. In case you don't follow what I do, not only do I talk about stuff that I'm interested in discussing or review, but I also interview people from the industry. And on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I'm sorry it's quite late, but I'm interviewing film director Ron Underwood, who directed Tremors and City Slickers and is currently working on the Walking Dead franchise. Cool. And there'll be some other special guests on that stream as well. So you do want to check that out on Tuesday. So don't forget to like and subscribe. It'd be great to get the subscribers up to 5K as fast as I can. Yeah. Now, people have been pretty divided on this show. But for the most part, apart from the fact that I do think there should have been an episode that introduced all the characters that didn't have any action in it, I do think the show has suffered from that. But that was my main gripe. I still liked what we'd been given. I thought episode 3 was one of the best episodes of television of this type I've ever seen. Incredible cinematic, very gripping. I was really invested in what was going on. Then we had episode 4, which people will describe as a filler episode. I'm just going to say I've got a couple of criticisms of this episode, but I'm going to say what my main one is. Just to be clear, I don't care that this is a filler episode. I'm okay with episodes that aren't filled with action, I quite liked a lot of the stuff in this episode, waiting for people to come back. I like some of the subplots, the thing with the Polish lady, a little bit stereotypical, but still believable. It was believable, but stereotypical. However, this section, I'm going to show you some stills now, and I'm going to talk about why I have a problem with this scene in particular. This scene, for me, brought down not only my rating of this episode, but the show as a whole. So we have 2 American airmen who are, through the Underground Railway, making their way back through Belgium initially, then France, presumably to go via Spain, which is where most of them went to then get back to the UK. They're being facilitated to do this by a couple of agents, one of whom is traveling with them on the train, who excuses herself to go to the toilet as the train is coming into Paris, the most highly occupied city in Europe with Germans in it at that time, probably with the highest number of collaborators at that time. This is 1943. It's not clear which way the war is going at this time. And she says, don't talk to anyone. I will do all the talking. By the way, I'm now going to the loo. So that I had a bit of an issue with because it just seems stupid. One of them gets up. He panics. He runs into the train. We then have this scene with the second underground agent lady who we don't realize is on the train. She stops him and she speaks to him in English in a carriage that's filled with about 30 people. Okay. None of whom she knows, who could be collaborators, who could be German agents. They could be absolutely everyone. And they have a very urgent and hushed conversation, bit of dramatic nonsense. But okay, I'll buy into that a little bit. That was almost passable. But then she rushes him back to the carriage. Okay, let's look at what happens in that scene. When we get back to the carriage, she stands for no reason, because they've now shown their tickets, with the carriage door open, right? While people are passing behind her, just not people that are part of the team, just other French civilians are passing behind her. We don't know who these people are. She doesn't know who these people are. There's one of them in that shot there, discussing their escape plan out loud in English. And when the characters talk in their own language in the episode, they talk in French. We have established earlier in this part of the narrative of the episode that they mustn't speak because they might get found out. We also establish as we pull into the station that it's filled with Germans and German SS officers and alike. And then if you look at the reverse shot of that same scene, when they're in the carriage, our 2 Americans, they don't even speak in hushed tones. They're speaking in their own voices with the door open, with her standing in it, whilst other civilians are just wandering past. Now, I'm sorry, but this is bullshit. They would have been taken off the train and caught in seconds if they'd actually done this. And this is supposed to be a show that's grounded in realism. This is not The Dirty Dozen. This is not based on a novel by Alistair MacLean, where you can forgive these kinds of things. I do have some other issues with this episode. The other issues I've got are forgivable. This one is not. You could have got all the drama with this scene with no one saying anything. The guy still could have got up and panicked. The woman still could have grabbed him and just forcibly taken him, frog marched him back to the carriage. They could have had a bit where they went to say anything, so said, shut up, don't say anything. And then it could have all been done with an exchange of looks. Sometimes no dialogue is far more powerful than people kind of overacting. This was like a scene from Hello, Hello. I'm sorry, but you can probably tell I'm a bit peeved. So let's hear people's thoughts on this.
I think you should actually. I think you should actually speak your mind, Lance.
Well, don't hold back, man.
Look, I'm a big fan of Band of Brothers. It's one of the best shows ever made. I like the Pacific as well. I like the episode Melbourne in Pacific. No action. It's a filler episode. It's one of the best episodes in the Pacific. This is also a filler episode, but this is historical nonsense. It's not believable. They set up a scenario where they say, don't speak. etc., etc. What do? They speak on a carriage full of people in the busiest train station in Europe that's full of collaborators.
I think
just before that. Sorry, Will. Do you remember just before the stream that I said to you, Lance? I said that I'm probably going to say snap to a lot of your issues, and snap on every count of this, on absolutely every single part of it. And I think you've said it all. So over to anybody.
I think much like you, it really struck me as very odd that she chooses that moment to go and have a piss, like just as they're pulling into the station. Like, surely, can you not wait for 5 minutes? Like, you'll be off the train shortly. You can do whatever you need to then, but you really need to shepherd these guys carefully through this section. And like the one thing you didn't mention is the reason that the guy panics and runs is because they've been confronted by the conductor who's asking them for their tickets in French. They don't know what the hell he's saying, so they're trying to give him like all kinds of travel papers to bluff their way out. And like he's clearly getting more pissed off with them because they're not understanding him. So one of the guys just runs, and like she has to spin this ridiculous bullshit lie, like, oh, he's deaf, so he can't understand you or something, and like he's panicked. Like, if I was that conductor, and I'm assuming he's not like any kind of collaborator, and so he's not particularly invested in like turning people into the Gestapo. But still, that would be a massive red flag if I had two guys who looked suspicious, who weren't responding to me, who clearly didn't understand the word I was saying, and then who tried to run off the train. I'd definitely want to know what they were about. But yeah, that seemed a bit contrived. And I've got to be honest, I'm not hugely invested in this like escape and evasion subplot. Like the show is definitely at its strongest when it's the bombing missions. Yeah, and it's like this is this weird appendage that they've put on dramatically. I mean, I get the air crews did get downed during the war and they had to try and make their way back to friendly territory, so it kind of gives you a different perspective on it. I just don't think it's handled in a great way, and I think a lot of these scenes are going to drag with these guys.
Yeah. I mean, HistoryBro probably confirm this, that when it comes to, it's actually picking on something that you said, Will, that people in sort of authoritarian positions like railway guards and obviously police, etc., they were pretty much in the pay of the Germans. So they were in those positions because they would turn anybody in. There are so many cases of railway conductors and such that were turning in escapees as well as resistance. So they were very much part of the establishment, if you like. So it makes it doubly unconvincing, I suppose, that all this would have happened. But exactly as you said, I mean, of all the times for her to get up and want to go to the toilet, it was that moment. And it was almost like, I know what we're going to do. We'll have to write something here that's actually going to put them in peril, because we haven't really seen them in peril since they've been on the ground. So how can we contrive this? And it was so contrived. It was such a contrivance.
I can think of six other ways to make this scene dramatic without any of this nonsense. I mean, it's not hard. We've got two writers, we've got two script writers on this guest panel, and I bet like right now we could both come up with things that are just more plausible and would fit. And it's the fact that they broke their own rules. I hate shows that they set up their reality, they set up their rules, and then they break them. It's a bit like Pierce Brosnan, surfing off the iceberg again in James Bond. We all know that Bond isn't quite capable of that.
I do think the word contrived is the perfect word for it. It did stick out like a sore thumb, to be quite honest. I would have thought the thing that sprung to my mind, the thing that was sort of one of the worst errors in writing the whole thing, was that I'm not sure you'd really want to go through Paris at all.
Yeah, it's the last place you'd want to go.
Right, and let alone the sort of crowbarred in bit of drama. It stuck out.
There surely would have been ways that you could travel at night through the countryside where your chances of getting spotted are relatively slim, and just stick to remote areas.
There was a curfew in place. If you were traveling around at night in France without a valid reason and without a pass, you'd get shot. They'd assume you were members of the French resistance, because that was when they moved. So
I would have thought you'd want to be
pretty
squirreled
risky.
away in the back of a van under a tarpaulin or something. You don't just go on a train to Paris. I mean,
I mean, that there was an underground railroad that did exist, which actually a lot of it involved people traveling by train. That they'd then go to the town that was, I forget the name of the town, but it's near the Spanish border, and they'd be taken over the Pyrenees. By guides. That was part of it, and part of that could involve, and did in some cases, with the Jews as well, that were being smuggled out traveling by train. But even so, I mean, you're not getting off at Paris. You'd come in here and you'd probably be going through, because they don't get off the train. That's established. So, you know, again, the whole thing, even if she's getting up not to go and pee, and and it's not even so much that, it was the fact that they were conversing in English freely in front of people whose identities they did not know.
You know what I thought it was initially, and I thought it was actually going to be quite clever, that she was baiting them almost to test to see who was going to run, or who might be a double agent or something like that. Like, I'm going to go off to the bathroom for a minute and I'm just going to see what these guys do when they're not being watched. I thought it might be in a way for the resistance to test them. In which case, okay, cool. That's pretty smart, I guess.
But you probably wouldn't do that test in Paris, though. You'd probably do it in, you know, a smaller station like.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, it turned out to be something way dumber than that, so it's fine.
I know this is. Sorry, I was going to say, I know this is an obvious comparison, but if you look at how subtle it was done in The Great Escape, when they're all on the train. And look at how subtle that was. It was done with looks, with hand gestures. The most you actually got was a whispered tally ho, and that was it.
When the what's his name, James Garner, jumps off the train.
Until you get that German Gestapo guy going, "Good luck."
Good luck.
And he just goes, "Thank you." No.
Yeah. I'm afraid you won't be commanding CI5 after all, Gordon Jackson.
That is a truly classic bit of cinema of all time, isn't it?
It is. He was the one that tested the guy earlier in the film.
Someone said already that the idea of the writers, at some point, the writer or writers are sitting down and they've decided that, you know, it's a filler episode. That's fine, because episode 3 was sort of a battle, an air battle, the whole episode.
Yeah.
So, okay, dial it down a bit for a filler episode, fine. But we need some kind of drama, especially for this subplot. So what we're going to do, let's write something. You know, it's going to be contrived. Let's contrive something. And this is what they came up with. It's a bit poor. It is a bit poor. I'm not quite as angry as Lance, but it is sort of obviously a bit subpar in terms of the writing, I think.
I think I almost view it as, well, clearly this is not the show's strong point, you know, doing all this subterfuge, escape and evasion, behind enemy line stuff. It's, like I say, it's geared up to be this big bombastic World War II drama in the air, mostly. And so when it has to do these bits, you can tell they're not really comfortable writing stuff like this, and it's not their forte. And so, I almost don't expect these bits to be too great.
The thing that annoys me, right, is this is a huge production with big names attached. You know, Spielberg, you expect a standard of quality, and we have, for the most part, in most areas, we've been given that by the show. You know, Hanks, etc. I don't know who. I didn't. Can someone check to see who directed episode 4? Because I can't remember.
It was Fukunaga, I think.
Was it?
Okay. Yeah, he's done the first 4. And then it's going to switch to different directors for the next couple of episodes.
So I just, you know, did somebody not sit down and say to someone, I mean, you've got historical advisors. Did they just not say, look, guys, you know, I mean, because they are trying to go for realism here. It's not hyper realism. Again, you know, it's not Dirty Dozen. It's not, you know, Quentin Tarantino's World War II. This is supposed to be grounded, realistic World War II.
It's the same writer who's done the whole show. It's John Orloff.
Yeah.
But
So,
if we look at when it was being shot in from early 2021. This is supposed to have been initially released in 22. So
Yeah.
the evidently there are and have been issues with it. So
Yeah.
you know, hence being sort of trimmed down. You know, having an episode shaved off. Why 9 episodes? I've no idea. You know, and why these episodes are so short, I've no idea.
That's
But
weird
there's
as well, 'cause it's not,
obviously a lot that's been taken out. A
you've
lot
got
that's been taken
42
out.
minutes on average per episode, roughly, because, you know, half of it's credits and
Yeah.
coming next week, which I really don't want to see, because I don't.
Yeah.
I turn that off. I don't watch that.
Yeah,
now.
me too. Me too.
A lot of recaps as well.
Yeah, and yeah, you got a recap.
Yeah.
So I worked it out. I timed it, and it's each episode's between 41 and 42 minutes. Some episodes of Band of Brothers were nearly 70 minutes. They were all slightly different lengths, and it's not like we're trying to cram this on the telly between Crossroads and News at 10 or whatever. So I don't understand why the episodes can't be longer.
There was one thing I think. There was one thing that someone said, and it's interesting. I think it was you, Lance, said it. That when it comes to the writing side of things, hasn't it gone through sort of a number of rewrites or a number of eyes of professional writers, script writers, things? And it, you know, it often boggles my mind that you can have a massive production. I'm thinking of almost every Michael Bay film. It's a massive production.
Yeah,
you got years to play with. Probably you've definitely got tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of pounds, and someone writes something off the cuff, and that's what they go with, and that's what ends up being the plot and the script and the dialogue, and it's shit. It's dog shit. Oh, like it boggles my mind. How does that happen? You know, but it does. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, here's a little something for you. We actually shot episode 1 of Band of Brothers twice. There are 2 episode 1s.
Wow.
Why?
And
what happened there?
And I actually
tell us more.
It just wasn't working. It really wasn't working. Tonally, it wasn't working. If you look at the original, the first kind of production script, not the first draft, but the actual first production script, first shooting script, it differs completely from the final shooting script. So there was a lot more to cover. There was a lot more in the aerial training, a ton more. I've actually got that episode that fell into my bag.
I would love to see it.
Hatfield Studios.
Well, you know, green room discussion about that after the stream. Probably shouldn't say too much more, mate. I don't want to get you in trouble there. So.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. Just let's honestly, mate. You know, working on the other side as we do. I would keep stern. That may have been a fictional statement. Let's move on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, Exhibit 2, Your Honor. Sorry. I have to raise something else. So that issue for me is the biggest sin. Okay, I am fully aware that this production was shot with the shadow of lockdown. So very difficult. We can't get a second unit over to France and do some stuff in France or whatever. Fair enough. Okay, and so with that in mind. But I am going to point at something else. And again, just minimum research is all it would have taken. So we ride through a village that we know is in Flanders, so Belgium, but it could even be in France. But let's say the border of French and Belgium. This is the village street. Nice bit of production design detail here. Some French resistance people hanging from a post on the street, which is, you know, it's quite cool. And we've got our downed American airmen coming through, and this is supposedly our French/Belgium Flanders village of 1944. Now, I'm going to tell you a few things that are wrong with this shot. First of all, number one, the chimneys. There's no chimneys that are of this design in France and Belgium in 1944. I know that's a rivet counter type niggle, which is why to be honest, I wouldn't care about that sort of thing. But I know why they've done it like this, and I'm going to tell you why. Whoever looked at where this was filmed looked at the other buildings that they were using on location and went, oh, well, we better get the designs to match the other buildings. But the problem is the other buildings are English. They're not French. Now, these triangular roofs, if you've ever been to any villages in Belgium, and there's a lot of them that are still completely intact from the 40s that missed getting smashed in World War II. You don't have straight triangular roofs like that. They kind of have this sort of ziggurat configuration, which I'll show you in a sec. The actual street where this was filmed was in Maple, Durham in the UK. I want you to pay particular attention to this white door on the left with the lantern. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take that slide down, and it feels like that episode of Star Wars that Drinker did where they were sort of doing the court case. Right. Okay. So this is the actual street. Notice the white door. So you can see how much CGI they've done. Now, I've been to this location because in The Eagle Has Landed, which is an excellent World War II film for anyone who hasn't watched it, two of your Polish paratroopers pop out of that workman's hut there and ambush the American jeeps as they're driving into this town. There's the church from The Eagle Has Landed, and there is Maple Durham House down there on the left. You see, and note the chimneys on Maple Durham House. So what they've done is they've looked at Maple Durham House, which, by the way, they also filmed in the grounds of there because they had their guys. There's an archway just here in this next field, and there's a shot of the resistance people. You can see it's covered up, but if you could see through there, there's another archway parallel to that. So this is where that street was filmed. So all of those houses were all added on CG, post-production. Now, all you had to do was just look at a picture of a Belgian village, which is presumably the production designer or art director's job, and go to the people in post-production effects and go, the roofs should look like this. They should have this configuration. This is what they look like in Belgium, in France. So we don't look like an English village in the 1940s. But what someone's done is looked around Maple Durham and go, okay, that building was actually built in the 30s or whenever it was built. I don't know, probably way earlier than that. I think late 1800s. And they've gone and copied it and said, we'll make it. And as soon as I saw that shot, I said, well, I know they didn't film that in France, but they haven't even made it look like France. And it just, again, you had that attention to detail on Band of Brothers. When they went to, they built that set, which was overseen by my late friend Alan Tompkins. And if you shot down one direction, the street was France, and all the signage and the design of the roofs were all French. When you went to the other end of that street, you could shoot the other way, and it would be Holland. And they designed the set.
Actually, sorry, just a quick minor correction. It kind of was that kind of was the case. But what we did was, as the episodes were going on, they were reconfigured and redesigned. A lot of the buildings were reused. But let's say, for example, I mean, Eindhoven was a completely different town on set to Carentan and Hagenau. Hagenau basically is Carentan.
Reverse.
Just kind of rejigged about, and things pulled down, and
with the canal that
so we had all of that. That really was there. That really was built, that canal. It's still the best set I've been on. And where what I mean, where on earth were the real kind of historical observers, looking at this and thinking, well, hang on a minute, something's not quite right there. This is, as you correctly say, the art director's job to look at these kind of minor details. I know Mill Films did the CG work for Band of Brothers. I've no idea who did the CG work for this. A lot of it is very good. It's not taking away any of the the fantastic aerial stuff that's there.
No, Look, again, I do like, there's a lot I love about this show. If you go and watch the other reviews that I've done of episodes 1, 2, 3, episode 3, I was full of praise for. And again, this art direction stuff wouldn't really bother me, but I just sense that somewhere on this show, there's a lack of cohesion in terms of somebody who's got the power to say, that wouldn't have happened. Oh, and by the way, that should look like this. It just doesn't feel like we've got someone steering the ship on that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas VOB and Pacific felt very, I was hard pushed to find things where I went, yeah, that's wrong.
I'm quite surprised.
A bit of a lazy episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised and disappointed that they even felt like they had to use CGI for a village anyway.
Yeah,
like, you couldn't just find an actual village with buildings in it that you could just shoot. Like, why did it have to be built up like this? It's just stuff like that just makes it more expensive when you didn't have to. It's weird. And like you say, Lance, if you're going to do it, at least get it historically accurate so that you've got the right buildings CGI'd in there, because it is ultimately completely within your control. Like, all they used was a road, essentially, and put everything else in around it.
The shot before this is, and I didn't grab a still of it, but it's the girl and the guy cycling along the side of a canal. And it looks like a canal. I'm not sure if, when we do have canals in the UK, there's plenty of them they could have gone to. And of course, Belgium and Holland are full of canals. And to be honest, and the next shot after this is they go into a bar in the town and they're taken into the back room and interrogated. We didn't even need these two outside shots. It would have been enough to just show them cycling along the canal. They've CG'd the town in the background of the canal. You can see they've done the chimneys. Again, wrong chimneys.
Yeah.
And then we could have just cut to them coming in the bar. This looks like it adds production value. And I listen, I like the attention to detail. I like the bikes. I like the milk cartons and all of that stuff. Nice period car, even, French and all of that stuff. But again,
well, it looks even like the headlights have been taped over for blackout.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stuff like that. Neat. Stuff like that's great. What we don't need is the Harry Potter house in the background here that's been CGI'd in, with these nonsense chimneys that you'd be hard pushed to find chimneys like that in France in 44, maybe in a manor house.
You're a real chimney man, Lance.
That's my. I've got 4 books on the sub. I honestly have. I just looked it up. I just could tell they were wrong, and I looked it up for the stream, and I just thought, this is.
My feeling on that, Lance, is that once you pointed it out and said all that, can't fault you. You're absolutely right. Bang on. For me, I didn't notice at the time when I was watching it. I didn't notice. But as you've pointed out, it's absolutely a fair enough criticism. One thing I would say is that whenever there's a period piece, whether it's supposed to be the 19th century or it's supposed to be the 40s or something, sometimes it's done well. But one thing that if it sticks out like a sore thumb, one thing that sprung to my mind, I don't know if you must have saw them. The old Poirots with David Suchet as Poirot.
Yeah.
It's meant to be the 30s. Quite often you see London in that, and it's really badly, obviously, like 1990s or 1980s London, and they've just got some 1930s cars and sprinkled them in the background, and it's like it's really obvious. For me, this it wasn't really to me anyway, and I haven't got a great eye, but it wasn't really obvious. That sort of went over my head, the chimney thing. I must admit, I didn't notice it.
It helps that they're usually confined to quick establishing shots, like just them going into a building or passing through quickly. So you can get past it, I suppose, without noticing it too much, which helps.
But it's a fair criticism of Lance's. I'm not saying it isn't. I just didn't happen to notice. That's all.
I mean, it's like, this is a minor gripe. My big gripe is that nonsense in the train station. But
how did you feel about the whole subplot with Bucky heading off to London with his Polish squeeze?
It wasn't anything we hadn't seen before, but I do know that because World War II is my thing, and I do know loads of relationships, transient relationships like that happened. People thought London was still being bombed at that time. It was being bombed well into 43. There were still people being killed. That scene with the house that was destroyed, and you know, the mother comes out screaming, and you see the kid being carried out. Really effective. Great scene. Really loved it. Great production design. You know, just and the reason they had that scene in there was to show death can happen to you anytime. Men and women were looking for these transient relationships, and her saying, well, my husband was killed, he's in a field somewhere, I'm not looking to romantically get connected to another pilot. It was a bit cliche, but it was believable. I could believe it.
Yeah, I mean,
and that conversation that you had, I beg your pardon, please go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, people in that situation, like, you're not looking for long term.
No.
No, you're absolutely right.
Well, what did you think of that, mate?
I thought it was fine. Like, kind of like you say, it's relatively trite and predictable that you know, it was just a filler episode, something to fill it up. What can we put in? Bit of sex, keep people happy. I could have done with seeing a bit more flesh, but that's okay.
It definitely is that bridge episode, isn't it? It's that bridge episode that's going to take you on to the next big thing.
You know what I would have liked to have seen a bit more from, and we're getting hints of this with Bucky. It's always confusing because there's Buck and Bucky.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he's maybe getting a bit burned out with flying so many missions, and he's starting to become a little bit of a wild card. And it's like, do they call it flak happy or something? When you're starting to get a little bit like, I need this. It's like, I need the adrenaline rush of it, and you're starting to become a danger to your crew. I might have liked to have seen him struggle a bit more with being away from it, like being in London and not being around the machines, the crews, all that stuff. Maybe to see a bit more insight into what he's going through, because he's still pretty closed off, I think. And obviously what happens at the end of the episode, we're going to see probably a more emotional side to him in the next episode. But
that conversation that he actually had on the phone, that's absolutely accurate. That conversation when he phones Thorpe Abbott's,
talking in code.
That is absolutely verbatim. Absolutely verbatim.
I liked that. I like that whole golf. Wasn't it golf they were talking about?
Baseball.
Baseball. That was it.
Striking out, and
I liked that.
He went out swinging.
Yeah, he said he wants a pitch for next game.
Inside Man.
Yes, mate.
Do you know where that was shot? Because I've got a feeling I might happen to know where it was. Do you know where that is?
I have no idea where that was at all. No.
Okay, I might be completely wrong, but it looks to me like it's in Bloomsbury. It's between Russell Square and Tottenham Court Road.
It was. No, we identified
the British Museum.
I can tell you that location.
Is that? I hope I'm right.
Trinity Church Square.
Right.
It's all because it's all these like beautiful Victorian terraces, isn't it? Like, it's like a really clean looking London, which is just not like what it is now.
No, well, indeed. I've got a super chat here, by the way, so let me read it out now, because I don't think I'm going to need to do a drinkers catch up stream in that regard. So Sandy Q, who's a lovely historian who actually popped on. I play American Civil War computer game, Ultimate General. And I was playing the Battle of Antietam, and she's actually a tour guide around the Battle of Antietam. She popped on my stream and was kind of guiding me through what happened while I was playing the game and losing really badly. This is her input. As a historian, sorry, I have to say that at least once a day, I'm torn. I love to see any effort, even when they get it wrong, to memorialize historical events in film. I agree with you on that. History is so much more interesting than fiction. There was a lot about the episode I liked. I did say that at the beginning, including the things that have just been mentioned, the coded conversation on the phone, the scene with the bombed out house, very powerful. The scene where the bombers come back, and you've got when they come back, by the way, and they're doing the flares, it means they've got wounded on board.
Yeah, I think it's red is
red flare.
Red is it's too red.
Wounded. I know that.
What I love seeing as well is like when they touch down and you see the condition these planes are in. Like you just look at them and how the hell did that thing even make it back? Like they've got massive chunks blown out of their wings. They got 3 engines out. Like these things were just absolute tanks that they could sustain so much damage and keep just stay in the air.
A fortress, yeah. Can I say something about the London thing and the subplot with the Polish woman and stuff? I thought I'll probably sound like a massive prude here, but hey, whatever. I thought it was sort of unnecessary. You know, like in Band of Brothers, there's a bit where you see Tom Hardy banging some woman. It's like it feels like sort of crowbarred in. It's fine, you know, it's not a problem. I'm not sitting there watching it with my mum and like blushing or anything, but it's just like, I don't know, it just didn't seem particularly necessary. Or if you are going to do that, you know, as Drinker said, I'll see a bit more then, actually, at least, you know, do one or the other. But with the bombed out house thing, I thought that was, as Lance said, quite powerful and very, very good. I think it was great that they did sort of a tip of the cap to the Blitz, because it is a massive thing. I mean, I'm a Londoner, so I'm going to know a lot about it and sort of have an interest in that. But the Blitz was unbelievably bloody. I mean, it's something over 40,000 civilians were killed in the Blitz, and maybe as many as 100,000. No one really knows. On top of that, wounded, and of course, a lot of those would be women and children. It was an unbelievable thing, and it wasn't just London. You know, like Coventry got smashed, Liverpool got smashed, Manchester, Bristol. They bombed as far as north as Glasgow, crazily. But London and the docks, and some of my family are from sort of the East End, and it's not a million miles away from the docks. So there's some stories in my family and stuff. But you know, they didn't have to do any sort of tip of the cap to London and the bombing of civilians, and they did. And I thought it was done quite well. You know, it's fairly soft touch, but it was powerful. I like that.
They started bombing Glasgow, but then they realized that was actually making it better, and so they decided it's probably better to stop with that. But it was an interesting time as well, like when this is set, because this is late 1943, and I guess the Blitz had kind of eased off by that point. The Luftwaffe wasn't in quite the numbers that they'd been before, but yeah, you do get these air raids still happening on a fairly regular basis. I was always a bit confused that they were able to sit in their hotel room and watch this happen, because I'm pretty sure everyone would have been like ordered down to shelters if there's an air raid warning on London. It wouldn't just be, there's bombs falling on this region of the city, which is like half a mile away, but you're totally safe where you are. Like everyone would have just been sent into the shelters because they wouldn't know where it was going to land. But I don't know, maybe it was optional. You could just choose to ignore it.
I didn't have such a problem with that scene. There's an identical scene to that in the Battle of Britain with Susanna York and what's his name, Lovejoy, who went on to
Ian McShane.
Ian McShane. I think it's the two of them. Or no, it's Christopher Plummer, I think. And they're watching the start of the Blitz from their hotel room. He's just had a weekend pass. This is much later in the war, as you say. German raids are less frequent, but are still happening. People are still being killed. It's not really established where the hotel is, but he is in Hammersmith, which is much further away from East London. So there's some effort made to set up that actually this is much further away than the East End, the dock, the primary targets of the Luftwaffe, the industry of London. The west posh part of London didn't get bombed as much as we know. That's why there's still a lot of the original architecture there. So that, I can forgive that.
Sorry.
I noticed in the chat, Echo Chamberlain's here, and he was asking why haven't we got Mark Felton on? Like, well, he's too interesting and charismatic for us. We just couldn't handle him.
I missed that comment. Must be way further down.
To be fair, he introduced me to Mark Felton, and there is something weirdly addictive about his videos because he covers the most obscure bits of World War II lore. Even I find it quite interesting.
Yeah, no, he's great. I've reached out to him a couple of times, been completely blanked. I would love to have a conversation with Mark Felton, but
I'm sure if I get into the minutiae of chimneys in World War II, he'll definitely jump all over
it.
And again, to reiterate, I have no interest in chimneys. I just know that they just copied them. They just copied them from the house on Maple Durham.
You're a closeted chimney fanatic. We know it. I was going to say as well, it'll be interesting because this presumably is going to progress towards 1944 and 45, so it'll get us through to the end of the war. If it'll show like the V1s and V2s falling on London, because that'll be pretty interesting to see.
Well, Inside Man, do we think there might be any V1, V2s mentioned in the show?
I've got to be honest with you. I have no idea because
what's the point of having you on?
That was.
I literally you have to remember that that now today you don't get a script, you don't get a full script anymore.
No,
Everything
you
will
get
be on
you get
a
sides
tablet or
if you're lucky.
Wow,
yeah,
that sucks. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Most
that was
for the most part, it will be on a tablet.
You know what I saw as well? Like, it was very brief during one of the air battle scenes, but I think it's a Fokker Wolf that does it. It launches
Yeah,
rockets into one of the
yeah, that's right.
B-17s, and it's so
Yeah,
fucking
absolutely right.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not something you see
yeah.
very often in air battles in World War II,
No,
but yeah, they
I was
did have
glad that
them.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out actually, because it mentions it in a lot of the books, in both Frank Murphy's book and Harry Crosby's. And there's another one that I'm going through at the moment to do a little bit of research on this as well, which is called The Fall of Fortresses, which is about the Schweinfurt and Regensburg raid. Um, but yeah, they were amazing, absolutely amazing. But I was really pleased to see those.
There was one other thing. Oh, sorry, I thought you'd finished. Sorry.
No, please.
Oh, there was one other thing I was going to say probably before we move on about the bombing of that house.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's really interesting that Drinker mentioned V1 and V2 because it was supposed to be summer, autumn 43, and as Lance said,
43.
Somewhere between August and September, October 43. So the main Blitz is sort of an 8-month period between 1940 and 41. But then towards the end of the war, you then get the doodle bugs, the V1, and then right near the end, the V2s, which are essentially like an intercontinental missile, basically a cruise missile. It's a giant rocket. It's like 2 stories high or whatever. So in 43, in Hammersmith, it's quite rare. I wonder if that's actually true, because you can find people have documented the Blitz in ridiculous detail. Like almost every single bomb, pretty much every single night of it has been documented. I wonder if there was an actual bomb that fell on Hammersmith in the summer, autumn of 43. I would be interested to know that.
It's weird as well when you think about how they, presumably when a plane drops their bombs, they drop them all at once. And so they're all going to come down in relatively the same area, like they'll fall in a line, I guess. So it always seems strange when you just see one house that gets blown up and then everything else around it is untouched. Like, okay, where'd all the other bombs fall? I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I suppose with the speed that they're actually traveling, the distance between one bomb and another, I suppose, could be a good couple of 100 yards. If
Really?
you're looking at it through relativity, but also the amount of unexploded bombs that used to, and are still there.
Drinker, have you seen Operation Crossbow, the World War II movie? And the one
who's in it?
They're parachuting into occupied France and Germany to infiltrate the V1 and V2 rocket factories.
Yes,
but it also covers the campaign from the British point of view as well, and it's a good movie.
Yeah, I think I remember that one.
Yeah, that's worth checking out.
Yeah, is that when the Germans have almost got like a new, like even improved version of the V2 that they're planning to launch, and they thwart it at the last minute. Yeah, I remember that one. It was good.
This is Trinity Square where that scene was filmed in London. Now you'll remember, if you look at the shot when they're walking down the street, you'll see these pillars in the background of one of the shots, and they use this section of street just here, obviously cutting out.
Not that big.
with careful angles, cutting out the modernisms and so on. But this is where they filmed, and I can see why, because it's easy to section it off from the public, close the streets. And
why don't we make nice buildings like that anymore?
And just
my last beautiful.
My last comment on the aforementioned subject. There's the chimneys on Maple Durham House, and they just copied them and put them in that shot. I'm sorry, but
Is that you mentioned another film? Is that the one where Michael Caine is a double agent and it's all in the church? A lot of it's in the church.
This is where the Eagle Has Landed was filmed here.
Did they sorry, one last thing. Did they because there's an old 70s thing with Michael Caine. Did they remake that film?
No, it's not been remade, but a director's cut was released about 10, 12 years ago, which I've got, which is really good.
It's a great film, that, to be honest.
This is where the pub was built. You had a pub here in that car park, and then they had a second set. There's the mill, where the kid goes in the water, and the identity of the Germans are revealed. And just here, where this wall is, they had a post office or something built as well. So they had a building built there, and they had a building built there. We did a special episode actually about. We covered it way early in my stream, but I think I should do one about Operation Crossbow at some point.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So what else did people like or not like about this episode? We'll go round and go on, Bo.
One thing that sort of also stuck out to me was that you saw like a Down syndrome kid at the beginning.
Yeah, I know the actor that you mean. He's a lovely guy, actually.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's like it just didn't seem necessary. Like, was there someone in the production or someone that said you've got to have a disabled person depicted in it at some point?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, it's got nothing to do with World War II and the bloody 100th and B-17s. Why? I don't begrudge that actor, but like, why? It's just I don't know.
I think there was I haven't thoroughly researched this, but I did ask somebody this question, and I believe there was a story about somebody, in the pub, the pub, because the pub was almost within the perimeter of the base, the local pub that they went to, and I believe that there was a kid with a disability who was brilliant at darts, and it's mentioned in someone's either letters back home or something like that, and obviously somebody said, well, let's put that in.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I feel like a bit of a dick even mentioning it.
No,
but
it's
a little bit like, are they going to crowbar in, like a trans black woman at some point for the sake of it?
I think it's one of those, it's one of those unfortunate realities of modern TV where every time you see something like that, rather than just thinking, well, that's probably reflecting a real story from a real individual at the time, your mind leaps to like, oh, did they just have to, like you say, put that in to score some brownie points or something, or meet some quota? And it's a shame because, like you were saying, if there's a real individual who was involved in this back in the day, then he should be represented on screen fairly like anyone else. It's just that's the nature of modern TV, unfortunately.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's people may recognize that actor. He has a really great part in one of the earlier seasons of Line of Duty.
I remember that actually.
Where criminals are using his house, and that's based on something that happened to a real person who had a what would be a council flat, and it was taken over by drug dealers, and that happened about 500 meters that way, and that person had to be relocated under police protection to Manchester. Why they thought Manchester was going to be safer for him, I'm not really sure, but that and I heard that was the inspiration for that storyline and that character. So and boy, when they closed down that drug den, did we know about it? They all came down this end. And
I was curious, everyone on the panel, did anyone expect or want more with this whole subplot with the character of Quinn and maybe remember Babyface dying during a train sequence? They talk about it for like 20 seconds, and I think that would have been a good subplot. I mean, the whole PTSD element where this kid's begging for you to save his life, and the fact that there's nothing I can do but let you die, and they gloss over it for like they have like 3 lines. I expected more from that.
I think because like it was obviously a harrowing scene in the previous episode, and you kind of think like, it's going to lead to something. The fact that he lies about it, because I don't know why he chose to lie about it. I don't, what he did was pretty understandable in the circumstances. I couldn't get him out. Like either I stayed and died with him, or I got out myself. Like what do you want me to do? I think anyone would understand that. So the fact that he did choose to keep it to himself and like lie about it. I thought there was going to be a bit more of a payoff when he did finally admit the truth, and it, like you say, it just kind of gets swept under the rug. Like, oh, okay, you couldn't have done anything else. Yeah,
it feels like that bit's done now, and I also felt like the guy came back with that answer a bit too soon. I felt like for a bit of an arc with that. That conversation maybe should have happened in the last episode. Where there's a bit of a because the other guys kind of got to take that information in. It's not, you know, you've got to absorb that. And these are guys that are still going. They're young. It's the first time they've lost one of their fellow crewmen. It's the first time they've crashed. They haven't done this 5 times already. So I don't know. I think more could have.
Once I felt, because that entire train sequence, had we got that instead of this weird subplot, that would have been a scene for a better episode.
Yeah.
I do like the scene as well with the rookie crew that's joining up, and they ask, like, you know, what advice do you have? Well, try and survive more than 11 missions, because if you manage that, then you've beat the average. Oh. I had to crush their spirits. Damn, man.
What's quite interesting about this? What's actually quite interesting about these guys is, you know, obviously there's the 25 missions, and you go home. You get to go home. But I believe from one of the accounts that I've just gone through that there wasn't a single plane that went home with the full complement of the crew that they started out with. So you would have a few casualties here and a few casualties there, but none of them went home after 25 missions with their absolute original crew in the bloody 100th.
Well, I was just going to say it's called the bloody 100th for a reason. I don't know if you guys are
exactly it.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Catch-22, the Joseph Heller book.
The series is good. I like the series as well. Good.
There's a series.
Yeah, with George Clooney.
Yeah, George Clooney.
That's completely passed me by. But I'll check that out. But I've read the book a couple of times. In fact, it was one of the first sort of very serious books I read when I was, I don't know, 16 or 17 or something. You know, a proper grown-up book. You know, and I've reread it since. And in that, it explores quite heavily, you know, the idea that these crews, because Usarian and they're in what are they in North Africa bombing in well, they're not in the European theatre, are they, in Catch-22? Anyway, the point is that you've got this set number of raids or missions you've got to do. And, you know, you see guys your friends falling by the wayside and everything, and the attrition rate is very, very, very high. And so it's sort of maddening that, you know, you've got to go back up there, that you've got to. And if you do it enough, you are going to get killed. And so it's sort of a madness. You've got to be sort of mad to keep doing it. And then in Catch-22, they explore the idea that if you're mad, that you're only mad people can do it, and if you want to try and get out of it, that's sort of sane. And anyway, I hope that in later episodes of this Masters of the Air, they do explore a bit more the deep psychology, or it would be a crushing pressure, wouldn't it? It would be an
how much would you be shitting yourself on your 25th mission? Like, oh my God, am I going to buy it on this final one, like on the home stretch? I don't know. I feel like you'd be more nervous then than any other mission. Well, it's interesting as well, because like sometimes I imagine like they're given a bombing target that's relatively easy to get to, like northern France or something. Like, okay, that's a short run, we can do that. But then occasionally it'll be like some city right in the heart of Germany, and you can just like their hearts just sink. You know, oh fuck, we got to fly all the way across Europe, getting
next week's episode. Next week's episode should give you a bit more of an idea of that, to be honest.
I mean, episode 3 was crazy, man, where it's like, okay, our plan is for you to go to Bremen, you got to bomb the shit out of that, and then you got to fly down through the whole of Europe to get to North Africa, getting attacked the whole way.
It wasn't Bremen that was...
Sorry, not Bremen.
It was way further in Germany, and we know you weren't able to be on last week's episode, but we pulled the map up and looked at how far it was, and the second objective was even further away. They had to go right into the heart of the Germany, then turn south, go over Switzerland. There was a great story about one aircraft from that squadron, not from one of the other groups, that was shot up, and it had to land in Switzerland, and the crew were interned there for the rest of the war. What a lucky break.
That's not bad.
I was quite surprised.
Do some skiing, eat some fondue. Happy times.
quite surprised that wasn't in the show. I thought that's a writer's dream, that little bit.
Yeah, there's so much skipped. So much has been skipped because I mean these stories they're vast stories. There's so much that I cannot believe has not been incorporated into this series so far. I mean, it's good, but it could have been better because of the amount of stories attached to the Bloody Hundredth, particularly these particular men that we're focusing on. It's a little frustrating.
You guys can correct me on this one because you've got the better historical knowledge. But one thing that always struck me about the air battles is like the turret gunners on the B-17s seem to score an awful lot of kills, and I just feel like they probably wouldn't have most of the time. I feel like hitting an enemy fighter and actually downing it would have been super fucking rare, considering how fast they move and how heavily armored they are.
Yep.
Your chances of actually shooting one down with like a 50 cal must have been like astronomical. I don't know, like maybe I'm wrong there, but like it seems to happen like, you know, every guy's scoring like 2 or 3 kills per mission. It just seems a bit over the top.
On that massive mission between the two groups, I think I watched the stream last week because I had the accurate figures, but I think, if memory serves me, between all of them, the Americans claimed 288 kills, and in the records with the Germans, there were between 22 to 27 of their planes were destroyed, not including the ones that were damaged. So you know, a lot of people
they
claim
overestimated.
Well, a lot of people claim the same kill. You know, you're firing a gun, you see a plane go down. Oh, I hit that one, and you probably got 5 guys on 5 different bombers.
Well, the other thing that strikes me is like because the B-17s are flying so close to each other, like friendly fire must have been a real problem. Like they're just firing pretty wildly. Like they must have hit each other sometimes. It
was a huge problem.
We talked about it a bit last time, but it was proven really that the whole concept of a flying fortress is kind of flawed. The thinking was that okay, we can't necessarily have fighter escorts all the way for like long missions. So what we'll do is we'll make the bomber itself just like bristling with guns, and it'll be able to defend itself. We'll put 5, 6, 7, 8 50 cals, twin linked 50 cals. We'll have it bristling with guns, and it will be able to put out a wall of lead around itself. And after the war, in hindsight, looking back at everything, the concept was a flawed one. It's extremely difficult. If there's German fighters coming at you at 200-300 miles an hour, you're moving at a couple hundred miles an hour, closing speeds. Inside Man talked about this last time. Sometimes closing speeds of like 700 miles an hour or something silly. It's very, very, very difficult to shoot them with a machine gun. So the whole concept is actually flawed. You're quite right.
I think, to be fair to the show, because it did seem like a lot of fighters were shot down, but as someone's said in the chat, that particular group were under attack for a period at one point non-stop for 80 minutes.
That's crazy.
So imagine that. That's nearly an hour and a half where you're flying towards your target in Germany and you're under constant attack from wave after wave after wave of fighters. Imagine your adrenaline going like that for 80 minutes. And that is compressed into a 20-minute sequence, give or
can you imagine
take.
how exhausted they would have been after you know that all of that adrenaline going around you, you know, when you land. I mean, they must have completely flaked out.
They would sleep well that night, that's for sure. I like how they all get handed like a whiskey as they come back for their debriefing.
They earned it.
You'll definitely need this.
I saw a clip, a little bit of footage from the real Bloody Hundredth, or at least B-17, some B-17 squadron afterwards, and the guys sort of getting out and having a smoke because everyone smoked. Everyone smoked in my childhood, let alone in the 1940s. Everyone smoked, and you could see them sort of almost shaking and almost like a 1,000-yard stare. It's a real battle. Yeah. It's a real battle. Yeah, the amount of adrenaline, the amount of sort of shitting yourself would have gone on. Yeah, I mean, it'd be terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I did like the little narrative where you've got the new guy. He's the one they say try and survive 11 missions. He immediately takes the liking to the British girl, and you know, he gets a dance with her. He wants a kiss, but you know, she doesn't want to give that to like every guy that turns up. I forget the name of the character. I think it might be this chap possibly.
It's an American girl, isn't it? She's not over from.
Yes,
No.
She's
She's a British waff or naffy. She's handing out the sandwiches and things when they come back.
I thought she was one of the. I thought she was one of the American Red Cross girls.
Yeah.
Oh, she might. Yeah, that's right. There's one of them that's American. Anyway, and
no, I know what you mean though. Yeah, there's a different girl that like.
They've got that little narrative, and he says to her, "You might be the last smiling face I see," and they have that little exchange. And she's looking for him when the planes come back. And that was a really simple storyline that wasn't over milked. And we know these things happened, and they happened a lot. And then one of the guys takes her aside and says, "Sorry to tell you, he didn't make it." And it's just that little thing. And it must have been really difficult for them working on that base, affiliating with these young men, some of them probably falling in love with some of them, or just liking them as friends, colleagues, and seeing so many of them not coming back. What I really
appreciate about this show is that there's never these big like hysterical breakdowns where people are crying and screaming and stuff. It's very subdued, and it's very pragmatic. When people hear that someone's died, they just take it on the chin because, hey, they've been living through it for like 3 or 4 years by this point, and they're kind of used to it now. And it's weird. That's the generation that like just probably endured like emotional hardships that you can't imagine now, but they just learned to cope with it. And I think it's represented well on screen. And I'm just really glad that they did it this way. And they didn't try to just put this modern spin on it where everyone is like super emotional and like constantly has to talk about their feelings in hallways. And
I liked the scene at the beginning where you've got the guys coming back from their 25th mission and everyone's like rooting for them. And they come back and they launch all the flares off the plane, which probably
they buzzed the control tower as well.
They did. It was a bit like don't buzz the tower. I was waiting for some guy to come out and spill his coffee, you know. But no, I think this might be the guy that comes back from the successful mission, or he's the one that goes off. There's lots of guys with little tashes that all look very similar in uniform.
I think that's a really good point Drinker made. I completely agree that she's told he hasn't come back, and she doesn't burst into tears or anything. I think that's good. And also, there's a bit where towards the beginning of the episode where they just talk about, if we die, no one will really remember us. If these new kids, if they die, I probably won't remember them and stuff. We touched upon this in one of the other episodes we did about how that's quite realistic as well, is that maybe it's not such a terrible artistic or writing decision to have fairly minimal characterization, because in real life you're thrown in with guys on a squadron or something, you don't really know them all that well, and then half of them die quite quickly, and you don't make really close friends because you may be all dead quite soon.
There's a really good movie with Lee Marvin and Mark Hamill called The Big Red One. That deals with this, and like there's narration in it at times, and it's like diary entries, and one of the characters straight up says like replacements came and went so quickly that we kind of avoided getting to know them after a while because it wasn't worth it. Like
we avoided the new. He said something like we avoided the new guys. And there's that scene where the guy gets one of his balls blown off, and they find it. He says, Lee Marvin goes, "Don't worry, you've got another one."
Yeah, it's like you can live without it. That's why they give you two.
They also touch on that in Band of Brothers, don't they? But one small anecdote, that's not even just in wars. One anecdote is that Graham Chapman, a 1960s, 70s Formula One owner, he didn't ever want to really know or become friends with his drivers because it was quite common that you could die or be burnt to death in Formula One in those days. So even in something that's way less dangerous, it's still very dangerous actually, 70s Formula One, but still way less dangerous than World War II bombing crews. But you don't become best buddies with everyone.
It's like that. It's like what I mentioned. I think I mentioned it on episode 1, where I think it was Egan or who was it? It was Crosby. In Crosby's account in his book, he said, we knew this guy just for breakfast, and that was it. He went out on this mission and he didn't come back. And from then on, we knew him as the man who came to dinner, and that was it.
Yeah.
They didn't know the guy's name.
Damn.
It must have been terrible, absolutely shocking.
But the most common complaint that I've seen in World War II groups and those kinds of things is people saying, apart from this person and this person, I can't follow who people are. I'm not invested in this person, because even the people that, we are going to get to know over the course of the show, who are obviously going to survive, like the navigator guy, the nervous navigator from episode 1, who narrates that episode, therefore, and he's talking about things retrospectively, therefore, pretty good chance he's going to survive. And I think he's got a book out, so we know he lives.
Yeah.
We're still not that really invested in him. And we've got to remember, this is a dramatic narrative. It's a TV show. And people, you don't have to spoon feed people, but they do like to be emotionally invested in characters. And I think we felt it when Barry Keoghan's character died, because we got a fair bit of time with him. Not loads, but enough.
I
think we could have had a bit more time with some of the other people.
I think this is a similar problem to what I had with the Pacific, and I think maybe it's because you get thrown into the action relatively quickly, and so you don't get a chance to get to know people. And there's a lot of characters in the Pacific, just like there is with Masters of the Air, and a lot of the time they've got face masks on, and it's quite hard to just visually distinguish them from each other. And it's only now we're 4 episodes in that some of the key players are really, really like emerging, I suppose. You get to know people a little bit better. But for the first couple of episodes, I was starting to struggle. I was struggling to just keep track of who was alive and who was dead, because it's just, there's a big sea of faces, and it's a lot to take in, like right off the bat.
Could I ask the panel what they think about this? I got the feeling that maybe Buck isn't dead. That maybe I don't know.
No, he's not. He's not dead.
Oh, right.
You just ruined plans.
I mean,
son of a bitch. I figured they wouldn't kill off, like, with such a big actor playing him. I figured they wouldn't kill him off so unceremoniously as just an off-screen death.
No, I mean, I don't know the history of it, but I knew that we're going to get another episode is going to cut back to that mission, and we're going to see what happens to him.
Okay.
Good.
We know that certain people have written books, so we know that those people, without getting into specifics, we know those people survived because they wrote books, and it's not hard to find who. I'm just going to highlight this comment from George Kaplan. Peter Jackson was going to make a
God, that would have been awesome.
Damn.
But it never happened. Mate, that movie went into turnaround like 3 times. They got the money and lost the funding, and they built the full-size bombers for it in Wellington, in New Zealand, where they were going to do the main shoot. And they built them.
This is one of those rare occasions where I would like to see a remake of that movie, because, like, obviously it was made in the 50s or whatever. The effects weren't great, and I think if you were to do it now, it could be amazing, especially with someone like Peter Jackson doing it. Yeah. We need more World War II movies. We really do.
And George, you'll probably hang on a second, mate. George, you'll probably know about the Pegasus Bridge movie, and that was my film, and that also went into turnaround twice. And I'll tell people the full story of what happened with that another time. But that was my movie. You can buy the script for it on Amazon, though. So it's quick plug.
It's funny. It's funny. Just talking about the Dam Busters and everything. It was there's a really interesting little story that Stephen Fry had told, and he was in America, and he got a call from Peter Jackson, and he said, I've got some research material for you. I'd like you to work on this script for the Dam Busters. I think you'd be the right person to write the screenplay for it. So he said that somebody would be turning up with some research material for you. So he's got this villa out in America, or this big area in America we were staying. So about 9 o'clock in the morning, these 4 huge vans turn up, and there was every single document ever that was created either before the planning of the raids, all of the maps. You got every memoir that's ever been written, every documentary that's ever been made, manuscripts that have never been published, other screenplays that have been written that had never been made about the Dam Busters, the original, all sort of original handwritten stuff and hand-drawn plans and what have you. And there were like 4 van loads that turned up, and he had to unload them all and go through and decipher everything, go through everything in chronological order, to try and put this screenplay together, which apparently he did. He did successfully complete a very, very decent screenplay, apparently. But that's a lot of research material.
I've heard the screenplay was great. Yeah, I heard a lot of stories about why that film didn't get made, and there's competing theories, which probably we shouldn't get into now. But it's a real shame.
One thing I'd like to say about the Dam Busters and the bouncing bomb is you can find, I think it's on you, I'm sure it is on YouTube, you can find the original archive footage of them practicing with different designs of bomb.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Some of the footage is incredible, where the bombs sort of bounce off at weird angles and come flying towards the camera, and it's honestly some superb archive footage.
There's lots of footage of that available. There are a few World War II things in production that are coming our way pretty soon. Whether they're going to be any good or not, I don't know.
Yeah, there's one that I'm not looking forward to. I've got to be honest. I'm really not looking forward to Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Oh really?
Yeah, I saw a trailer for that for the first time today. Sorry.
It looks fun. It's obviously not like something you're meant to take too seriously, but
I don't know. See, these guys. This stories are among the best that you will ever hear, and they really are absolutely remarkable. And I don't know, maybe it's because I got a little bit of a thing about Guy Ritchie. I don't think he knows who he is. I don't, one minute he's trying to be Quentin Tarantino, and then he wants to be Christopher Nolan. And I just don't like his style. I don't like his style, and I just think that this is something that doesn't require any kind of trivializing. It might be something interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'm prejudging just by the trailer, but I know the story, and I don't like Guy Ritchie.
It does look
really.
It does look very. What was the World War II one that Tarantino made?
Oh, Inglourious Bastards.
It does look very Inglourious Bastards in terms of tone. And the weird thing is, and I think this is why you're a bit gripey about it, is it's based on the book by Damian Lewis, not the actor, the writer who does a lot of military books. And it is a straight up factual book about those missions that those men and women carried out. And it doesn't really need additional drama or silly World War II German naval bunker sets built and whatnot that look wrong. All of that. It's got the wrong chimney on it.
This is a real story. This, we've got, Inglourious Bastards was complete fabrication. This is a real story about real people. And I don't know. I just don't think that stories like that should really be trivialized and turned into.
You're worried they might dishonor the memory of those
guys. I am actually. Yeah. If I'm completely honest, and I don't like Guy Ritchie. I don't know what
Come on.
Oh, before you jump in, let me read out the super chat. At work, so I'll listen later. Congrats, Chris, streaming with the drinker at last. Oh, well, on my channel, but
I've done it before. Come on.
I'm sure.
This is old hat for you.
Oh, God.
Chris, I'm sure Drinker will get you on there. Cheers, Lance. Chuck Norris can beat up your imaginary friend.
That's true.
Well, I haven't got an imaginary friend. I've got a toy Baby Yoda, but that's about it.
Chuck Norris could beat that up as well.
I'm pretty sure he can. Bo, sorry, go.
I was just going to say, one, this is just pure flight of fancy of my own. One World War II era story I'd love to see, but done seriously, like this, or like Band of Brothers, not like Tarantino, would be sort of the Desert Rats, the Long Range Desert Patrol Group, the early SAS stuff in North Africa. I would love that. I would love if they did sort of a serious either feature length film or a series, that would just be gold for me. But,
did you not like the BBC one, Bo?
Which one? There's been all sorts. What one?
No,
the Rogue Heroes.
Rogue Heroes, was that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, there's loads. There's quite a lot been done on it, but over the years in all sorts of ways. But I'd love to see, like really slick, like this or like Band of Brothers or Pacific, where it's you can only fault it minorly here and there, and make it look very, very high budget and all that stuff.
Did you ever watch a movie called Anthropoid, which is a weird fucking name?
Mate, I've got the cinema poster for that right there.
Oh, really?
I've not heard of it. I've not even heard of it.
Do you know what? That's really weird. Just before this, I was actually thinking of Anthropoid and Operation Daylight, and I was going to mention
Operation Daylight was the original one shot by. Was it John Sturges or?
Yeah, it was back in the 60s, wasn't it?
With Timothy Bottoms. That's a really good film.
76, I think, 75, 76.
So what is that? Fill me in. Is that about the SS?
Yes,
it was the assassination of the SS leader in Prague.
Reinhard Heydrich.
Reinhard Heydrich, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is it really pro-Jewish resistance sort of story? Then is it like
it doesn't really delve into that. It's literally just it's a pretty straight up retelling of the story, and like not just like the actual killing of him, the assassination attempt, but then the aftermath of them on the run, getting cornered by the Gestapo, the German army, and stuff, and then trying to fight their way out. And it's a really refreshingly just straight up World War II drama. I think it's really well handled. I think
it really is good. Yeah. Totally.
Cillian Murphy's in it, so it's pretty good performances all round.
Yeah. Now you say that, I think I'm vaguely aware. I haven't seen the film, but I am aware of that now. I should check that out. I will check that out.
There are 3 versions of that story. You've got Operation Daylight that was made in 76, which is, like I say, it's a really, really good action movie, and I'll stick on a quick clip of it if I can without us getting cut off. And then you've got HHH, which was in production the same time as Operation Anthropoid, and they were released within months of each other. I think Operation Anthropoid is the more superior film.
Yeah,
but HHH is definitely worth watching. It's got really good production design, but the battle that's at the end, which is the one in the church, of the 3 movies, I still think the version of it at the end of Operation Daybreak is, and you're not going to hear any sound on this, but is the best one. And I mean, we don't know exactly how many Germans they killed and all the rest of it, but it's extremely well directed and edited, and well worth checking out. And I think, for a time, the whole film was on YouTube. I've got the DVD of all 3 of these movies.
Nice.
Well, while we're talking about Heydrich, has anyone seen the film Vance, where Heydrich's played by Kenneth Branagh?
You mean Conspiracy?
Yeah. Is it not called Vance?
Well, it's got a couple of different
called
titles.
Conspiracy.
Okay.
But that's another one that I was going to, and the only reason that I was going to bring any of these up is because at the moment I'm actually reading a book about Reinhard Heydrich, or I've got a couple of books to read about Heydrich. So, Conspiracy is fantastic. Again, that's everything that you hear, all of the dialogue is verbatim. It's all through
minuted.
They took minutes, right?
Yeah.
But
his performance is amazing.
Stanley Tucci's in it as well.
Yes, he is.
There's loads of famous people in that one, right?
It's like watching a stage play of the Nazi hierarchy plotting the destruction of the Jewish race. Basically,
it could be a play, couldn't it? It could very easily be a play.
Yeah,
it really could.
Would be a really interesting one to stage now with the current political climate. The theatre might get firebombed. But Sandy's mentioning Valkyrie.
Oh yeah,
Valkyrie. Yeah, that was a good movie. I like that.
Yeah,
I really like it.
Film. There's a German version of that film that was made for TV, exactly the same story, and they re-released it when the Tom Cruise one came out. So I was able to get a DVD of it, and some of the scenes are almost word for word verbatim. And my friend Danny Webb was in the Tom Cruise one. He's the guy in charge of the communication center where they.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
And of course, if you look at Conspiracy and Downfall, you've got like half of the cast of Conspiracy and half of the cast of Downfall make up almost all of the cast of Valkyrie.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Downfall actually? Because I really quite like it.
Oh, right.
Okay, good.
Probably the best portrayal of Hitler, or the closest I feel I've seen the real Hitler in any World War II movie. And I saw that at the cinema. It was packed. It was opening night in London, and everyone was so gripped you could have heard a pin drop.
Yeah. I think because obviously it's been memed into oblivion with like the Hitler reacts to whatever, but the way he gradually just becomes more and more disconnected from reality, and all his like fantastical plans just become so detached from what's actually happening. It's great characterization and incredible performance from Bruno Ganz. I thought he did a great job with that.
Yeah, he really did.
It's got to be difficult, isn't it? Like playing Christ, or playing Hitler, or playing Stalin, something like that. It's always going to be really, really difficult to do it any sort of justice without being stupid. And I was sort of blown away by Downfall. I was sort of blown away. I saw it at the cinema as well, not an opening night, but again, you could hear a pin drop. Absolutely.
The fact as well, like it's a German production, so they didn't necessarily have a huge budget, but like they even managed to make the battle scenes look really effective.
And it's filmed in Russia, the whole movie, pretty much.
That's ironic.
I know, right? The streets were all the street stuff is all filmed in St. Petersburg, or what people would know as Leningrad in World War II. And they went to like the warehouse districts there, and because the architecture was very similar to Berlin.
Right.
Before it was destroyed, they had those same kind of the new modern apartment blocks was something that the Russians copied from the Germans. They kind of had a look around. Right. Oh yeah, we're going to copy this, and we're going to make Leningrad, the sort of model city for Russia. So they had a lot of the similar architecture, and the bunker set, the way that they built that was so that any section of wall could be removed, so they could get the cameras in, but they kept the actors in it like the whole time. So it had that claustrophobic feel. They couldn't just pop off and go to the toilet sort of thing. It was, they had to walk all the way out, and it was extremely well done. Brilliant.
It really was incredibly well. Has anyone seen Come and See at all?
God, yeah. Oh my God.
I haven't seen it yet. Like everyone keeps recommending it. Like that's a war movie that'll stay with you forever.
Drinker, that's not one to watch with the family. I'm just even the greyhounds might get traumatized.
It really is. It's a heavy watch, and
quite weird and abstract at times as well.
Yeah, it is. It's it's and it will stay with you. There's no question. I think it, and this is not to kind of denigrate Schindler's List in any way, but this kind of makes Schindler's List look like a fucking Tom and Jerry.
Damn.
It really does. It's really heavy. It's a really, really heavy film, and I think if you don't really, I don't know. I mean, even thinking about it now, kind of.
You're scaring me.
It's.
It's about atrocities on the Eastern Front, and there's not a lot of dialogue, and it's all seen through the eyes of a young boy, which is a really clever.
Genuinely, there are zero punches pulled in this movie. There are absolutely none. It's as horrible as you can conceivably imagine. It's absolutely horrific. It's horrific. If you want to see a really realistic portrayal of the destruction of a human being, then Come and See is your go-to movie. It's horrible. It's horrible, and sometimes even just thinking about it brings a bit of a lump to my throat, because it's an incredible.
I've only watched it once, and I've got it, and I've never been able to watch it again. So it's not like tough, a film you think, I'm going to stick that on for the afternoon and chill out. I can do that with The Great Escape. Come and See. No.
It's hard. It's a genuine hard watch. It's a very, very difficult watch.
I guess what's interesting.
It's on YouTube. It's available on YouTube.
Okay,
there you go. On YouTube.
I was going to ask.
Think again.
Yeah, because obviously when it comes to World War II movies, you can get the full spectrum, I suppose, of genres and emotional tones, where you can have something like The Great Escape, which is relatively cheerful, or it's portrayed almost as this caper, it's all good natured relatively, although there are dark moments in that movie as well.
You really feel it when the characters die in that.
You do, yeah, but
it's
I guess what I'm saying is you can get movies like that where the tone is more adventurous and it's more the sort of thing you could comfortably watch on Boxing Day in the UK or whatever.
Kelly's Heroes would be one in a similar.
But then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got movies like Schindler's List and Come and See. And I guess my question is where do you see World War II movies sitting in that? Is it almost disrespectful to portray the war as some adventure that's fun almost? Or is it too much to just have every movie have to be this grim, horrifying slog that strips you to your soul?
No, I think there's room for both in my view. There's the Alistair MacLean type stuff, which is your Where Eagles Dare, your Dirty Dozen, your Kelly's Heroes. The other thing you mentioned, the Rob movie and unnecessary machine gun fire, and you're not expecting too much realism, but it feels real. It feels like it could have happened, but not really. And then there's This Is History, and these are the real people, and these are the real names. And if we're going that way, I'd like it to be as accurate as they can get it, but still make it dramatic and enough to invest. That's my take on it.
But I think also, when we look back on some of the older war films that we really do love, you have to remember that they are products of their time as well. They're products of the, some of them are not long after the war, maybe 10, 15, 20 years after the war, perhaps. And there are still sort of censorship codes to abide by. So there's only so much that can be put into some of these films. Although The Great Escape, an incredibly brilliantly written and directed movie, a lot of it is extremely accurate. There are some minor inaccuracies in there, but obviously tonally it's of its day, isn't it? It doesn't take anything away from the fact that it's a great movie.
One thing I would say is, for me, A Bridge Too Far sort of hits the tone very well. Very, very well. Where it is serious and everything, but also it's like an adventure. One thing I think is very interesting is that different parts, even within World War II, are more or less brutal. So, for example, it's true that in Operation Market Garden, when the paratroopers finally gave in at Eindhoven, the Germans were just sort of giving them chocolate and congratulating them on fighting so hard. But then on the Eastern Front, you just crush people under a tractor and cover them with water so they become a human road, right? So, and from real life accounts, sometimes, in fact, it's not all that rare that sometimes guys that are in combat and saw a lot of stuff go down in front of their very eyes, they still talk about it glowingly. It was the adventure of their life. They loved it. It's odd to say that, but that is not all of them, of course. Lots of people are absolutely traumatized. Obviously, most of them were, but many of them weren't. Many of them loved it, and it's weird to say that, but that is true.
There's a different ideology between the Eastern Front and the Western Front, and the way prisoners of war were treated from those
night and day
countries. It was a communist, and they.
Well, I think they kind of adhered to the Geneva Convention when it came to Western prisoners, like Americans and Brits and so on. But then with the Russians, with the Soviets, it was pretty much they treated them almost like animals, and they can kill them at will, basically.
As somebody mentioned, A Bridge Too Far, just my vinyl soundtrack of it,
of course,
and it's great because it opens out to that. So, which is rather lovely, and it's not a double album, sadly.
What cast that movie had.
And the record is still in here. I don't have a record player to play it on, sadly, but I do have the soundtrack on CD. But I also
like
have
we've
a CD player either.
I love how we've just gone off on this mad tangent, like covering like every war movie ever. It's great.
Yeah, sorry, we forgot to mention this is a 40-hour mega stream.
We're going to talk about every war film ever made.
You know what's kind of funny is that what Drinker was saying about.
Should get back onto Masters of the Air episode.
Sorry,
Lou, go on.
Like Drinker was saying, you know, if you make every war film very dour and very serious, you kind of risk losing your audience. But take Jojo Rabbit, for example. Jojo Rabbit found a good way to make it comedy, but also like not disrespect what people lost and also how heavy war is. But it's sometimes people like Inglourious Bastards. Yeah, people didn't watch that film for the historical accuracy, but sometimes you just want to have like a lighthearted kind of take on history, and some people do, you know, want to change it up to make it more fun.
I think, like I guess in a lot of cases, it was just a convenient canvas to paint an action movie onto.
Yeah, that's
and so it wasn't really about examining the roots of the conflict and like the horrible impact it had on people. It was just, we want to see a bunch of stuff go boom, and so that's what they did. But yeah, I just think it makes an interesting, I guess, point of comparison, seeing all the different takes that you have on World War II from all these different perspectives with all these different kinds of stories that they wanted to tell. And it might be that, there's no like ultimately correct way of doing it. It's just perspectives, which is fair enough, I think.
I mean, not to mention, like, you figure from American standpoint, America, people always say that Hollywood loves making American World War II films because we're the heroes. But then imagine being Germans, the German people. For most these people were victims. They were caught in a conflict. They had no say in the matter. They couldn't stop what was going on. So, or versus the UK versus Australia. The term is World War II. So every country is looking at. I mean, we just watched Godzilla -1 and how Japan was looking at World War II. It's a very
I think it's fascinating. Like the Germans have done a good job at doing some World War II movies. Like Das Boot is a great example where they don't really try to delve too much into the ideology that these guys are fighting for. They're just guys there doing a job. Like their job is to like hunt for enemy ships and try to survive. Yeah, and that's the perspective they take, which I think is fair enough, because probably for most German soldiers in World War II, that's all it was. Like, you're there because you've been ordered to do it, not because you want to be there or anything.
And that's what's very hard for, because for German, like you said, these guys are just doing their jobs, but the rest of the world's looking at these guys like these guys, the enemy, it's all your fault. Like, you're the bad guy. So, like, does the rest of the world want to see a movie from the bad guy's point of view? When it's more complicated than that. They weren't bad guys. They're just like, they're victims in their own right.
Yeah, I must admit, I really dislike Jojo Rabbit as a film.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like straight up the only film that gave me hope for Taika Waititi as a filmmaker. I just thought, fuck me, yeah. Really? He struck such, like, because there's such an emphasis on like kind of goofy comedy throughout so much of it. Those moments when the drama kicks in hit so fucking hard. Like that bit where he's walking down the street and he just sees his mother's shoes. Like obviously she's been hung. So all you see is her shoes. The rest of her's out of shot. Like, God damn, that hits hard. Because that's what it's this great juxtaposition of the child's view of the world. Like everything's just a big adventure. And like he imagines Hitler as this like cool hero to him, and then every so often reality comes into his world and you see what's actually happening, and it's a great contrast. I think it's giving you a child's perspective on World War II, a German child no less, and how I think it's really clever as a film, and it's really effective.
And not to mention, Bo, like Drinker was saying, look at Sam Rockwell's character. He could have been a monster. He actually showed the guy's just doing his job. He wound up like saving JoJo's life, because even these guys, and during the course of the film, Sam Rockwell's character is like, he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to do this stuff. He's got kind of no choice in the matter.
And he's got a kick-ass uniform by the end as well.
I just disagree. I'm afraid. I thought the tone was really like cartoonish. I thought it was written.
Well, that's the idea.
Well, but it didn't work for me. I didn't like it.
No, I mean that's fair enough if it didn't work for you. But
I felt like it was written by a 13-year-old or something. I thought it was really.
Well, it's
really
written from the perspective of like a 13-year-old. In the it is goofy and cartoonish and silly, because that's how he sees the world. But then every so often, especially towards the end, reality comes in and you see what's actually happening, and it's meant to be that contrast for you.
Like I even took it as like, imagine Blazing Saddles but in World War II. Blazing Saddles, what do? You make the racists or the bad guys idiots, because the Nazis in this film were morons, but that's the point. And like Drinker said, you're looking at Hitler from the mind of a 12-year-old back in 1940s. Hitler was this glorified, great person that everybody loved, right? That was the premise of the film. And then
I also don't like Blazing Saddles.
What?
You're killing me.
No!
Let's not go down that
Honestly,
rabbit hole.
Oh.
You are killing the stream, dude.
Yeah, look, we just lost 20 viewers.
Go away for re-education, man.
Hey, I'm going to change tack quickly, and before it's too late, and show you this picture. Thought you guys would get a kick out of this. So right after my father was in the Danish resistance in World War II, he used to evacuate downed Allied airmen over to Sweden, because him and his brothers, there were 4 of them all together. They used to all sail, so they all owned little boats. Anyway, right after World War II, the first thing he did was he bought a camera, and he travelled round in, I think it was 1952. He travelled all the way down through ruined Berlin, which I've also got pictures of, right after World War II. And then he hitched a ride with a French Foreign Legion supply convoy right across Africa, and they went through the middle of the Sahara, and this is one of the planes that they found that was shot down. And you can see
cool.
The bullet holes in the window. I think this is a British plane. I don't think it's
I was
American.
going to ask, what is that?
I'm not a great aviator.
Is it a mosquito?
That's what I thought it was when I first saw the picture, but somebody else told me it wasn't. It was something else. But somebody in the chat will probably know. But I've got a whole load of pictures of my dad on this trip. I think actually, Drinker, I showed you some of those pictures in the pub one time when we were drinking, like the Indiana Jones sort of trucks. And my dad was really good with truck engines.
Just imagine doing something like that now. Like, we can't even wrap our heads around it. Yeah, I'm just going to go on a world tour through like war-torn Europe and Africa, and I'm just going to take pictures of all this stuff that's like been downed or blown up or whatever. Like, I'm going to hitch a ride with the French Foreign Legion. It's cool as fuck.
Lance, can I ask you a quick question?
You can, of course.
I don't suppose your father, when he was in the UK, I don't suppose he worked for a company that sort of dealt with sort of fire extinguishers and fire alarms and stuff like that, by any chance?
Yeah, he did. He worked for Newswift on Regent Street. How did you know that?
I'll tell you after.
No, well,
I'll tell you after.
Jesus, now.
Did you meet him?
I'll tell you after. No, I'll tell you after.
Okay. Damn.
You jerk.
Come back next week to find out.
Wow. The plot thickens, everyone. You don't just get film criticism here, you get family dramas and historical mysteries.
Well, this is when my dad made the front page of the Mirror for making that journey. And here he is on the right. And boy, man, do I miss him big time.
Can imagine.
But look at that,
cool.
1 penny. Don't get papers for 1 penny now, do you? That's his then girlfriend, Ingrid, who he dated before my mother. And I just traced her family, and very sadly she died in 2017, but she was an accomplished children's book author and did a load of children's books in Denmark. They were both graphic designers. And yeah, my dad did all the artwork for Newswift, which was a Danish fire extinguisher company that was based in Regent Street. It was just down the road from Hamleys. And he invented this thing called sorry, I know this is off a bit of a tangent, but he invented this thing called the Fire Fiend, which was like an animated creature. And I've been trying to get that artwork logo off of Newswift for years, but they haven't got it. This is the shop in Regent Street back in when he first worked there in, I think it was early 50s. And he worked there until they relocated to Yorkshire, which would have been in the late 80s, and that was when he decided to leave the company because he didn't want to relocate us to Yorkshire, a decision for which I'm forever grateful. So
just to answer your question as well, it seems like people in chat think that downed plane was a B-26 Marauder, which is an American plane.
Right, that's interesting.
Because I'm looking at a picture of one right now, and it does look pretty similar to what you showed.
That's I'll have a quick look. Somebody did tell me what it was before, and do you know what? To be fair to them, they may well have said that, and I'm just remembering it wrongly because I said, "Isn't it a mosquito?" And the front of it does look like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The pic on Wikipedia looks, which, as we know, is never factually incorrect.
It's actually interesting how much stuff is just still left over from World War II, just sort of sitting in place, battlefields.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some amazing
lot.
videos on the Eastern Front, like when guys will just go hunting through peat bogs and stuff. And God knows what they're going to dig up.
Even stuff from before World War II, from World War One. There's a whole bunch of trains that Lawrence of Arabia blew up in Arabia. That's the Hulk, the wreck of it is still just sitting there to this day.
There's areas of France that you still can't go. It's called the Zone Rouge from World War One because they dropped so many munitions and so many like poison gas bombs and mustard gas and stuff. Like it's saturated the land to the point where like it's uninhabitable pretty much forever.
Yeah,
and it's like this strip of no man's land where it just you even now it's fenced off and you're not allowed to go there. And it's 100 years later.
There's some French farmers still occasionally get blown up by munitions.
They call it the Iron Harvest.
Wow.
I love the way you threw that out there, Bo. Occasionally some French farmers will...
What tends to happen more often, though, is that they'll plow up like a bomb or something, and they actually have like boxes to put them in at the edge of their fields because it happens so often that there's actually a procedure for it.
Oh my God.
I think the French government have got a whole department to deal with it. It's you know, it's a big issue still, 100 years later.
The weird thing about World War One was that it was concentrated in such a narrow area. Like World War Two, it was distributed all over Europe, but in World War One, it was like 4 years of basically lobbing shells over this like mile or two of dirt, stretching right across Europe. Like it was just this really narrow strip, and so these areas became so like heavily laden with unexploded munitions that they still turn up even now. It's crazy stuff.
Like, what was the numbers? And remember, Godzilla -1 went on missions there. Like, hey, we put like 50,000 mines into the water, and you're thinking like that number, 50,000 of mines into the ocean. Like, do people comprehend these numbers?
I know.
Oh, God.
Well, there's one last thing on that, Drinky. You probably know, but you sound like you know quite a lot about it. You probably know this. You know, at Messine, the Messine Ridge, where in I think 1917 they blew up some of the most massive concentrations of mines. Like giant mines that were heard in London, and like 10,000 Germans were blown up in a single moment and stuff. One of them never went off, and to this day, there's basically a room full of dynamite somewhere under the Messine Ridge.
I wouldn't want to live there.
Right?
I mean, nitroglycerine gets quite unpleasant after like 100 years. Like, wouldn't want to go near that.
Wait for it.
It was such a bizarre idea as well. We're going to dig a tunnel underneath the enemy trench and just blow it up from underneath. Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
There's Beneath Hill 60 is one of the movies about that. That's not a bad little...
Oh, I've not even heard of that either.
That's an Australian film. You were saying earlier, Bo, that you missed Catch-22. That was a 6-parter.
I've got to watch that. There's 3 or 4 things been mentioned this evening that I've got to go away and watch.
Came out in 2019.
Right, that totally passed me by.
I think the Inside Man owns a pair of those shorts.
Is it good? By the way, is it good?
It is good. It is good.
It's very well produced. It's very faithful to the book. You've got these nuts scenes where they're doing things like going and stealing loads of tomatoes, and and it's one of those things where the silliness of war, truth is stranger than fiction. I thought it was good. It got good reviews at the time. Okay. I think everyone was having such a shit year in 2019 that most people didn't see it, and thank God 2020 was coming.
Oh boy, perked us right up, did 2020? Thanks.
Yeah, I know, right? But people caught up on a lot more shows in 2020 for sure.
That is true. Yeah.
Oh, it's Hugh Laurie.
Yeah. He's very good in it. So there's his wonderful wife. There he is. Anyway, we'll cut back.
The thing about Hugh Laurie is he actually does own a huge lorry.
Does he? What a period, a World War II one?
Does he just own it ironically, or?
I think you're just winding us up inside, man.
I'll try my jokes on a better audience, I think.
Jesus.
Again, this is from the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I mean, when I watched it, I thought there's nods to Navarone, there's nods to the Wild Geese.
That's Great Escape right there. It's like that's Steve McQueen's version. Yeah, it's good to know that they had steroids in World War II as well.
That's all natural. Come on.
I mean, I'm going, when I go and watch this, and I will go and see it at the cinema, I'm going to firmly have my Where Eagles Dare hat, Guns of Navarone hat on. And Carrie Yules smoking a pipe. What's not to like,
Yeah.
That man was
I think he's great. Yeah, Carrie Yules.
Here he's one of the nicest people to work with in the industry. There they are.
Henry got a wicked sash going on there.
Yeah,
it's not. They're not going to CGI this one out either. So,
Drinker, I'm surprised that he hasn't been on your channel, Mr. Cavill.
Oh yeah, he's always messaging me like, "Come on, Drinker, have me on." I'm like, "Nah, Henry, it's not the right time."
And he's not big enough for him.
Yeah,
I'll never forget the day when we were prepping Pegasus Bridge. We were about a year away from filming, and we just started casting it. Of course, it didn't happen. And we get a phone call to my casting director. She rings up. We've had a phone call from Henry Cavill's agent. Is there anything in Pegasus Bridge for him?
Yeah, we'll find something.
Yeah, well, the lead isn't cast yet, and anyway, it went back and forth, and in the end, he wasn't going to be able to do the dates. Some other £20 million paying job came in for our £9 million film. So, that's like double the budget of our movie, his paycheck. But it was nice that he was interested. So I do think he's got an interest in true story World War II.
That's part of the reason why I hope this movie does really well, because I just want Henry Cavill to have a hit. Damn, man.
I mean, because we all seen what Argyle did at the box office.
Oh yeah, that movie sucked. But
I haven't seen it. I've seen your video, Drinker, but I haven't seen the film.
It's not really worth your time. It's pretty guff. And he's barely in it. If you're going to see it for Henry Cavill, forget it. He's in it for 5 minutes at most.
With this poster, how can we go wrong? What's going on here? I mean, I don't know what's happening with the tongue, and this looks like a World War I battleship, doesn't it? With the
why so much rigging on it? It looks like a sailing ship of the line.
Master and Commanders of the World meets Guns of Navarone.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Sandy says Drinker watches, so we don't have to. He does take one for the
Don't
team.
I know it?
You're talking to a man who watched She-Hulk. So,
I've still got the scars today.
All right, well, let's do a quick roundup because we've gone down a few rabbit holes there, and you've been a lovely panel of guests, and I don't want to keep people on too much longer. Just going back to episode 4, which we talking about again? We left about 45 minutes ago. After extensive discussion of chimneys and whatnot.
That was the highlight of my day, honestly.
Give
me your final thoughts on episode 4, Blue.
I mean, I'll be nice and say a 6 out of 10. Overall, like Drinker and everybody in the panel would say, I do like the sense to show after 4 episodes, the sense of duty, because we get this from Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks was a friggin' school teacher, and these guys, they're not doing this stuff because they enjoy it. It's because we have to. And like you said, Lance, 25 missions, they were clapping, cheering, congratulations, you earned it. This current generation, it's like, oh, these guys succeeded, why can't I succeed? And it's so much jealousy, and I don't know. I like the sense of these people. They're doing this stuff because we have to. We're taking down the greatest evil ever created, and it's got to be done. Versus, I see TikToks now where some girl has a nervous breakdown working 40 hours a week.
Okay. The other Bo in the group, Blue and Bo, history.
Good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was still pretty good. It's because it's a filler episode. It's not going to get above about a 7 out of 10 for me, but it's still good. I thought I am watching this whole series for the battles, really. Just a mediocre. It's a filler. That's about the best I can say about it.
Drinker.
Yeah, kind of in agreement with Bo and BluCollarLoser. I think probably 6 out of 10 is fair. As you guys have pointed out, it's a filler episode. After the big climactic battle of the previous episode, that was a real high point. It was going to have a tough act to follow, and it's really just a fairly pedestrian sort of character-driven episode. Didn't give us quite as much as I would have hoped character-wise, but at this point, I'm quite invested in the world that they've created here. I'm quite invested in all the little stories and stuff, and so I was willing to at least go through it. I gave it a pass to some extent, just because I enjoy where I'm at with this show. So yeah, 6 out of 10. Not great, not terrible, just nah.
I'd give it the same, 6 out of 10. 3 points off for the nonsense scene in the train where everyone would have been arrested or grasped upon.
And 1 point off for the chimneys.
And 1 point, yeah, you were right. 1 point off for the dodgy European architecture. Which
Lance, at least it's not Echo. Yeah.
But I think that with this, if you look at this so far as a whole, and I think we're really going to get to see how things are going to go up sort of after the next episode. I think that most people will be looking at this and thinking, do you know what? I'll skip that episode, and I think it will be one of those episodes that that you can definitely skip without having missed anything. I don't think you would have dramatically sort of, there's nothing really major that you're going to be missing. I mean, okay, the two guys on the escape and evasion and everything, but yeah, I totally agree. The whole scene of the train was it just made me groan. I just thought, oh God, no, here it comes. I thought they really could have done better. Really could have done better with this episode. But yeah, I'd say about a 6. Yeah, for me.
Fair enough. And you worked on it allegedly.
Yeah, this was. I mean, none of the location stuff at all. None of it at all.
Yeah, interiors and whatnot. Yeah. Fair enough. So, I mean, overall, though, I think overall we're all in agreement that overall we're enjoying the show, even though we have our issues with it.
Yeah,
is that a fair?
Yeah,
I'm enjoying this more than I enjoyed Pacific.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way I'm not going to be watching all the other episodes. I'm completely invested. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good to hear. Good to hear. Well, we are going to be reviewing each episode as they come out. I do a gut reaction review every Friday, time of which will vary according to Lance's sleep patterns. And then on Sunday, we do one of these. All of my panel, you're all welcome to come back. Of course, Drinker, we know you've got 1 million streams on, but you're always welcome to come back. And I know you're a bit of a World War II fan, like myself. HistoryBro, love having you on, mate, because you always come at things with a slightly different perspective. Blue Collar representing the American.
I'm a diversity hire. That's all I'm here for.
You're representing. We know that America contributed a little bit towards the British victory in World War II, so it's good to
the British victory.
And Inside Man, nationality and identity unknown, but with all the inside stories. I'm just going to mention a couple of other things quickly before I ask my guests what they've got coming up, and the links to all my guests' channels and socials. They're already all down there. We did an interview last week with actor Peter Murnick, who was absolutely awesome. Now, if you're a fan of the American Civil War movie Andersonville, Peter has a key role in that film. He plays the guy who leads the assault against the Union soldiers who've been robbing everybody in the camp. It's a massive scene. It's kind of the Spartacus scene in the movie. A great film, by the way, Drinker, if you haven't seen it, please. That will be number 679 to add to your list of films to watch. But it is well worth your time. Put it near the front. Now, since we did that interview, we're doing an Anderson special in the Andersonville special episode, which Peter's going to come back onto to talk specifically about how that was shot. And it was like a 4-month shoot. It was directed by John Frankenheimer, who's an amazing Hollywood director, sadly no longer with us. Peter is actually organizing a cast reunion for that stream. So we think we're going to have 3 or 4 surviving members of the cast of Andersonville with us on that stream. That's going to be later this year. We think probably March, give or take some time. If you watch the Nielsen ratings, my regular show on Tuesday, you'll know that I've been praising a television series that I've only just seen called 5 Days at Memorial, which is set during Hurricane Katrina. It's an 8-part show. It is one of the best television drama shows I've ever seen. I put it on par with Band of Brothers. I like the fact that it lets you decide how you feel about the characters, and it's what happened in the hospital during Hurricane Katrina when they were completely cut off, and ultimately some patients were euthanized by doctors and nurses. This is an absolutely heartbreaking show with Oscar-winning performances. One of the cast is coming on my channel to talk about it on March 30th. I think it's a Sunday. So we're going to be doing a special episode of Chew the Fat on 5 Days of Memorial at the end of March with one of the cast. We might have two of them on to talk about how it was filmed, how it was shot, the research that they did. It's all based on a book. It's very accurate. If you haven't seen that show, I highly recommend it. And then finally, in case you missed the running bar that's been going along the bottom of the stream, I have an amazing interview on Tuesday, later than my normal time, at 10 p.m. with Ron Underwood, the director of Tremors. And shout out to American filmmaker Matthew Holmes, who was very instrumental in making this interview happen. Ron Underwood also directed City Slickers. He's done episodes of Fear the Walking Dead much more recently, and things like The Brea, the remake of Hawaii Five-0, and other things, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and so on. He's going to be a fantastic guest, and there's going to be a couple of surprise guests on that stream as well. 1 degree away from Kevin Bacon, that's what I'm saying. So it's going to be great. Do join me at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. That's in place of the Nielsen ratings, my weekly show, which all of my guests have at one point or another, I think, have popped on. That's what I've got coming up on the Outcast Creative channel. HistoryBro, what have you got coming up next? All your links are already down there.
All right. Well, there's two things. There's my own channel, HistoryBro. Hope soon there's going to be a video coming out on the Fourth Crusade, a good couple of hours long. That's the one where the Western Christian Crusaders burnt down Constantinople, a Christian city. Anyway, so there's a big bit of content on that coming out. But also, I'm on Lotus Eaters every single week. The history themed content comes out there. This week it was on Longshanks, actually, and specifically Scottish campaigns. So the drinker might be interested.
We'll breed them out with prima nocta. I believe that didn't happen at that time and was historically inaccurate, I was told. But
well, we did talk about Stirling Bridge, where actually the Scots do hand the English's asses to them. So it's not all just dunking on the Scotch north of the border.
Do you have a Scottish flag up for that stream behind you?
No, we didn't do that. But it's a second part of a 3-part thing all about the life of Edward I. But every single week on Lotus Eaters, there's some history themed content with me, and two things for me. But that's it. I'll let someone else.
Darth Plato has said the Fourth Crusade had no leadership. That's because, Darth, it was going to be a film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it went over budget and didn't happen.
Wow.
That would have been epic.
Well, there is the Doge of Venice was the leader of it. So I don't know what.
Somebody is sending me the script of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Crusade. I'm not going to say who, but they might be close by at this moment. Sorry, Bo.
Oh no, sorry. I think maybe I've got cross wires. Is there just another film called The Fourth Crusade? It's got nothing to do with.
No, there was going to be a big budget movie called Crusade, which covered the sacking of Constantinople.
Oh, okay.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be in it.
And it was going to be Paul Verhoeven's big project after Starship Troopers. And the budget on it kept going up and up and up. And then, was it Coralco or one of those companies?
Coralco, yeah.
Because I think it was Andrew V. Vanya.
Andrew Vanya.
And the other guy, Mario Casar.
That's a shame because I would love to see a film showing the Fourth Crusade. That would be cool.
I mean,
I cannot
possibly
fathom
not.
a movie about the Crusades made by Paul Verhoeven starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What could go wrong?
I will pay so much money to see that.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, Blue Collar, what you got coming up, mate? I know you're on with me on Tuesday.
Well, not this Tuesday.
Not this Tuesday.
Yeah, because you're hanging out with this Tremors guy. So yeah. Yeah, definitely check out Critical Drinker did Tremors review, and it's excellent. Like I'm looking so forward to watching that stream with you with the director.
It's gonna be fun. Awesome. It's gonna be fun.
But I'm sure everyone's happy. 3 days, guys. We get to see Madam Web. I'm looking so forward to that film.
It's going to be an experience.
I'm detecting some dry sarcasm, but I won't press. What about you've got some streams of your own coming up next weekend as well? I think.
I'm always hanging out with you, so whatever.
Okay, you're on my channel in the So look out for Blue Collar on my channel occasionally.
I'll go see Madam Web because I hate myself. Why not?
I think we're doing a watch party next Saturday, but I'm not sure what film yet. I'll let you know. Drinker, I believe you're nearly at 500 subs. Tell us.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make it.
Help this guy out, man.
Yeah. Come on, please subscribe to the Drinker.
1.93 million something or other.
Yes, it's going
phenomenal,
okay.
Man.
No, thank you. As for what I've got coming up, I have absolutely no clue. I just work it out day to day. So I wish I had something I could plug right now. I know Mahler and I are going to be doing another Star Trek watch through because we've done Wrath of Khan, we've done Star Trek 3. So the next one is going to be the one with the whales. So we'll watch that together.
Mate, you should have brought him to London when they had that screening of Wrath of Khan. Do you remember?
Yeah.
I know. It's just scheduling, really. That's the problem.
Yeah, it would have been great for him to have seen that for the first time on the big screen.
Yeah.
But you can only watch a movie for the first time.
Oh, Lance, I have to ask him, how far are you in Attack on Titan? I know you started that.
I'm on season 2, just starting season 2 now.
I want to hear your views about the ending because, boy, the ending is talked about to this day. It's controversial.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, when I eventually get there, I will tell you.
Isn't there like 6 seasons or something?
Well, the thing is, they're anime, so they're like 15-minute episodes. And
I've got the box set of seasons 1 to 4.
Definitely, the last season is different than the first season, but it's I don't want to spoil it, but I watch it and I'm like, all right.
I'm very much enjoying what it is so far. I don't know where it's leading, but like I love the setup, I love the characters.
Exactly.
It's just a fun show. I really like it.
Yeah.
Well, just remains for me to say thanks very much to my guest. I really enjoy these collaborations. Thanks to the Inside Man, who pretty soon will have his own YouTube channel, but you can already follow him on Retropolis now on Twitter, isn't that right?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's quite good because last week, because of you, I actually quadrupled my followers on Twitter. So now I actually have 4.
Excellent. Yeah. So we gave you a shout out. Do check out the Inside Man's. He's going to be doing a YouTube channel, and on that, you and I are going to be doing a regular stream. I know. I'll see where I can fit that in between my other 5 weekly streams that I'm doing. Thanks to Blue. Always love having you on, and also Bo. Drinker, I've said it before, and other people have said it before, but mate, what you do to support other YouTubers, I don't see anybody else doing it to the extent that you do.
No.
And I don't think you've any idea just the level of love there is for you from people from that. And we feel very, very supported by you. And it would be quite easy for someone just not to bother. But you really do make the effort. And I've got to tell you, it's really appreciated. Really.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Lance, I see it all the time. I'm pushing 3,000 subs only because of if Critical Drinker didn't exist, I wouldn't be pushing 3,000 subs.
Yeah, same. I got to 3K because you had me on, you gave me a push, and again, I think even also when I was coming up to 2K, you either pushed me on your chat or did something, and you've also been on my channel several times, and. You know me, I just love hanging out with you and talking about films anyway. So
well, likewise, yeah. And it's like I can tell how passionate you are about like the world of film, and not just like what you see on the screen, but what goes on behind the screen, and the production side of things. And you've got so much like insight and knowledge. Like it's always a pleasure to talk to you about this stuff. So yeah, man, it's great to see you guys doing so well with your channels and see you growing and getting the recognition that you deserve. So if I can help out a little bit, then I'm more than happy to.
Well, hopefully the Tremors director Ron Underwood will help push me up to 5, I hope, and then I'll be in the top 10% of YouTubers apparently. I'm told. Funny you should mention this, Dan Candy, because Drinker and I have often spoken about should we do an in-depth discussion on Little House on the Prairie.
Why not?
It's got to be done. Be a first for YouTube, I think.
Yeah, Bo's a big fan. He's got all the DVDs. We may well.
I'm more of a Waltons fan myself.
The Waltons. Night, John Boy.
Wholesome American TV show stream. We may do that. Before I go, about 3 or 4 times a year, we do an alternative, interesting stream on the Outcast Creative channel. The next one that's coming up, I'm not going to be able to find the bloody artwork for it now, but the next one that's coming up, we did a review of the film Napoleon, starring actor Martin Weir, aka Danny DeVito. And if you look on the channel, there's a really long review of that film. Of course, that film was never actually made. It's a fictional review, but actors from the Outcast Creative are on that review. One of them's playing the producer. One of them's playing the military advisor. It's purely played for comedy. We're going to be doing another one of those of Jim Henson's version of The Thing. And we've got Muppets coming on screen who are going to take part, and they're going to be interviewed. Again, members of the Outcast Creative getting involved for fun. I'll let you know when that's going to be, but it's going to be pretty hilarious. So the Muppets do The Thing, a full review of that version of the movie. Can't say that we're not original on this channel. Right. So in the immortal words of my good friend, Mr. Drinker, would you like to take us out?
All right. That's all we've got for today. Go away now.